Sometimes you look at someone's style and see the person they've become before they've even realized it's themselves. So I was thinking Ben Gibbard's a really interesting example of that, because I saw Death Cab for Cutie at Outside Lands in August. They played 2 sets at the festival. The first one at the start of the day, and then again in the evening. It was my first time seeing them in 20 some years, and I could not recognize the person that I saw on stage. I was like, oh, this is not the nerdy, awkward, thick-rimmed, black glasses, striped t-shirt wearing musician that first came on the scene. He was a little chubby, a little nerdy, and in the typical emo musician sort of style, where it was very striped tees, the jeans, the thick-rimmed glasses, and a little bit awkward. But today, the Ben Gibbard that I saw on stage was like mature and thoughtful and graceful and grounded, and there's something about the way he presents himself now in his style that just speaks to who he is now as being a musician that's suddenly very successful in the spotlight. Is a very scary thing to suddenly wrestle with. Is, oh, how do I show up? How do I present myself? What do people want to see from me? I already have to nail all the music part of it. How do I show up in my style? How do I show up in what do I wear? How do I convey to people that this is the band, that this is the music that we play, this is me, this is the music that I write, this is the music that I want to inspire and bring hope and optimism to you with. And so it was really interesting to take a deep dive over the last 20 years and look at Ben's style and see how it's changed. We already established that he's awkward and nerdy in the very beginning, and over time you start to see different stages of his life. There's that Zooey Deschanel marriage relationship 3-year phase where he still kept a little bit the emo side, but his hairstyle started to change. Instead of being like straggly and in his face, he started to do the side part. And that was just an attempt, I think, to just speak to this new phase, a new chapter of his life. He's now suddenly married to the cool indie musician, Zooey Deschanel. And that's a big leap. The nerdy guy marries the cool, kind of nerdy musician who's just on the cusp of being a celebrity. She was in 500 Days. Her music was in 500 Days of Summer, and she was becoming a sort of a recognizable star in Hollywood. And so suddenly he's going from living in Seattle to living in LA, where you're surrounded by paparazzi all the time. And you can see in photos that they're in together that he's a little bit like, he's trying to look, he's not from LA, he's from Seattle. So it's going to be that crunchy granola kind of style has to find its way into LA celebrity style. So you can see the straggly hair that's in the front start to do the side part as a way to step into this new mature relationship status of marriage with this cool it girl. You can tell from his expressions that he was always frightened when he didn't look like he was fully confident in that relationship with her. The side part did try to attempt to be more mature and more graceful and more like LA, but the clothing wise still kept the same, the jeans, the striped shirts, and the cardigans. But he was trying to find his way, and he still didn't quite find his footing in that world and in his style too. And it shows in his style that he didn't quite figure out what he should wear, how he should look, because he was suddenly married to Zooey and being in LA and being surrounded by paparazzi all the time. Unfortunately, that relationship ended a few years later. The emo side has never really completely left him. It's always been a mainstay because Death Cab for Cutie's music is always very emotional, and it really hits at this core belief of something that you can feel, and the music hits at something you can feel and brings hope and brings peace. Especially now that they've released their 11th album, it really speaks to this grace and maturity that has followed him throughout the last 20 years. With all these different life changes, he realized that he needed to get healthier and really find himself again. So he took up running and trail running and ultra marathoning and becoming more mindful of his habits. And you can start to see that even with those physical changes, the immense weight loss that comes from intense running, that he's lost a significant amount of weight. He went from like the chubby, awkward kid to the sort of mature toned, trimmed down indie frontman. You can be an indie frontman, but you don't have to be nerdy and chubby at the same time. You can be mature, you can be in shape. I thought it was just really interesting to see where else his style has taken him, where else his style has changed. You can see post-divorce that he goes back to a more fitted, like he changes his hairstyle again. He goes from the side part to a much shorter cut with the parting off the side, but not so long. So it's going for mid-30s mature guy sort of aesthetic with the button-up shirts at times in the live shows. And now he's entered another life stage. Like back in 26, so fast forward some more years, he ends up involved in another relationship with their tour photographer. He ends up in another relationship with his tour photographer, Rachel, and that sparks a whole new chapter. Sparks some more like grace again. Helps him to feel more grounded and more continue to evolve in his maturity and in his aesthetic. I thought it was interesting just to see that all those different stages helped him grow out of this like woe is me sad stick that is typical with being an emo musician. Emo being emotional. Sadly, that relationship ended and they quietly divorced in 2023, which led to another big chapter in life change for Ben again. And it was interesting to see how that when he was with Rachel, looking back at those styles, he did have that graceful adult sort of later life stage kind of aesthetic. It was beautiful to see that he finally shed that awkward, nerdy, emo side of him that was in the very beginning. And he had to have shed that because he wasn't like that emo, sad, dopey guy, or I'm the victim. He said this before in interviews that with 11 albums under the belt now, as he has gone through all these different stages, that he didn't want the songwriting to reflect this like sad, victim-like state that he felt like was a common theme of the band's early albums or beginning first few albums. And so now here we are in 2026 seeing Ben Gibbard on that stage. I was like, wow, he's really trimmed down. He's really fit. He's in shape. He's a little scruffy looking. Obviously, he's in his 50s now, but there's a quiet transformation that happened between post-divorce to this 11th album. And it really speaks to how life changes can really have a big impact, not only affect you internally, but externally. And you can see that he's gone back to this sort of quiet, crunchy granola Seattle aesthetic again, but less emo, like his hair is slicked back. And that's very unusual to see the hair slicked back. With the hair slicked back, it's symbolizing that he wants to be seen. He's ready to be like, he's fully confident. When someone slicks their hair back, they're like, oh yeah, I know, I'm speaking to how good I am. I'm speaking to how confident I am. I'm speaking to how great I feel. And I thought that was really amazing. And it was really cool to see that he shed the glasses. He's going for more cardigans, like navy blue cardigans with shirts. But you can see that this like 50-year-old Ben Gibbard is finally realizing that the last 20-some 30 years were nutty, and he's finally arrived at a like meditation with himself, that he is fully aware of how incredible it is to have lasted this long and continue to put out music and to continue to be the band that is still resonant with a lot of people. So I thought that was a really great example to show you that as life changes, your style can change, and it's a great opportunity to show people the new you, show people this new persona that hasn't been seen before in the world.